Welcome to today's session. We're really keen to explore Worcestershire and really review what we've done previously. So this session is really looking at kind of our successes, the development of what we're doing, but in line with the vision that we've set as Worcestershire and not just as the local enterprise partnership. With me I've got Mark, who's been the chair of the Worcestershire LEP now for 5-6 years.
Since God was a boy.
Since God was a boy, yes. And what we've heard so far in the variety of sessions is really some of the successes, but updates, the way businesses are adapting in the current economic climate. How does that all play into the kind of vision that we set?
Well, if you remember back, we set the vision and spent a lot of time doing the research and found out what was truly important. And the vision decided was to build a connected, creative, dynamic economy to the benefit of all. And the reason we came up with that was that the vision, the word there of connectivity was critical. And actually we see it more importantly at the moment than ever, and we'll come on and talk about that in a bit.
Yeah,
but the connected element was the recognition that you need physical connectivity and digital connectivity, because as many of our businesses will tell us in the economy, and everybody recognises, they're fundamentals to actually driving productivity. And I mean, loads of research done on it, but it varies between physical connectivity up to 10% drive of productivity, and digital early days, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually much different. So it was about how do we actually change or build, actually, it's not just about change, it's build on the assets we have in Worcestershire and actually make it an even better place to work and live. And that vision actually puts out, because they're enablers. We're in a perfect geographic location. How can we build it so that people want to invest, start, grow, keep, stay in a fantastic place to work? And that's what the vision does.
And it is really across that sort of period that really drives across the both local governments, businesses, education, and really drives our decision making. Well,
it's driven it. It's been almost been the fundamental that we've held in stock all the way through. And then when we're talking to government, we talk to all the government departments, whether it be BEIS, whether it be DEFRA, whether it be Treasury or whoever. And actually, I think the penny drop with government between DCMS and BEIS was when they realised that they launched the industrial strategy, and they went, well, fantastic, you're talking about, you know, artificial intelligence, you're talking about all these things. If you don't have connectivity in place, you cannot deliver the industrial strategy. So if again, blowing our own trumpet, I think we were ahead of the game, and I think that's coming true now. So they're listening to what we're doing. They've invested a lot of money with us. We're shooting above our weight, and I think it's we've got a strong base to build on.
And sort of the COVID and it's called a kind of global economic shock, really, because where we've looked at recessions from the past, Worcestershire, we've sort of been first in, but quite shielded because of the range of sectors. But how has that kind of impacted the vision for 20 years or next 5, 10?
Well, again, I think, you know, the great work of you and the team, I think all the businesses across the county, and everybody's fed into this. This isn't, you know, a small group of people. We all fed into this vision that we put in place, it's probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I think now, when we put it in place. And it's come true now. We've seen it with COVID that we always recognised that geographically we were perfectly placed, but we also underrepresented from the digital connectivity story. We knew that we weren't getting the investment we wanted. I think what we're seeing now is this people now are looking to actually this levelling up in agenda, if I'm really honest about it. And I think we're seeing it with inward investment, people wanting to invest in the places. And I know we'll talk about it later on. My favourite quote around Mervyn King, when we had dinner, without name dropping, and he went and said, you know, he said the beauty about Worcestershire is that you can have an urban-rural lifestyle. And again, I'm not the sharpest tool in the box. And he went and said, and I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the beauty, he said, is if you're living in Worcestershire and you've got the same benefits of a city with the connectivity and being able to get in and out and whatever, you're in a fantastic place. Living in a city, you can't have all the benefits of living in a beautiful part of the world. He said it's fantastic, but there are certain enablers that you have to, backbone things you have to have in place to make it happen. And I think that's what we're doing. And that's why when it comes to the vision, of 2040 vision, we have that clarity of focus that when we're investing, if we've only got £10 to spend, then where do we spend that £10? We don't spend it on something that doesn't add value to the vision. Because it's the businesses that has actually told us what they want, and we're investing in those things. And, you know, talk to the MPs, they tell us exactly. So we're talking to all of the stakeholders across the county, both government, both in the county, both in the surrounding areas, and investing in those things that make Worcestershire the great place it is and will be in the future.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the Mervyn King quote is one that I think we both trotted out previously many times, because
my worry is he's going to want copyright on it at some point.
Yeah, very much so. But I mean, talk about visionary, sort of at this time, even more important. You know,
I actually remember the evening we were sitting there. It was at the cricket club. We were sitting there and we were just chatting away. And Bonnie's great. True, he's a Villa supporter. That's a problem in itself. But apart from that, it was insightful.
Yeah, and certainly we've had John Dillon, a board member, on the sofa in a previous session, and he really talked about that commercial property impact. But we know our residential estate agents are busy as anything, with people looking to come out the cities really for that lifestyle.
I saw some figures. I saw 5% increase in country property sales over the last 4 to 5 months. It apparently adds 7% to the house value price of a connectivity story. It also decreases it by 7%. But it's not just about, those are enablers. It is also the things that we've done as regards, you know, the road network, the investments. We're going to talk about the additional £12 million we've had. All these things help us invest in the things that truly matter to the county and enable us to be able to move forward.
And I think that's been the success of the strategy, really, that we've followed. We've stuck to the story to kind of sell and bring people in, but definitely we've also recognised that the market can actually mean that Worcestershire can lift itself and be a place that people want to invest.
I never forget when I was approached about the job, 6 years ago now, and it's always about the people ultimately. And I went around talking to all the different stakeholders, and the thing that surprised me and actually made me feel so confident about it was everybody spoke with one voice about wanting Worcestershire to actually attain its what it truly can achieve, and that one Worcestershire approach is critical. And you know, everything we do, we try to make sure all parts of the county benefit from it, and we're committed to driving it. And there's a realisation as well that we're not an island, so we work closely with Midlands Engine, where we've been a significant driver in some of the stuff in there as well around the connectivity agenda, which they've now adopted. We work closely with the Combined Authority as well, because they're partners, but also we work closely as well with South West and Gloucestershire, because we have the whole cyber cluster that we've got there. Because we realise that businesses, they don't stop at county boundaries. We work across all areas. We'll work across Lincolnshire with the agritech business over there. So we're committed to collaboration and working closely with people. And, you know, I think, as I say, I come back to, I think, you know, this is not down to a small group of people. This is about everybody rallying to actually promote Worcestershire, get excited about it, because it's a fantastic county. It's got some fantastic businesses, and we're just trying to make sure it really, you know, hits the mark it should do.
Yeah, and that wider regional perspective, really Worcestershire plays its part in things like the Midlands Engine, from a transport perspective, from connectivity.
Well, if you look at Midlands, you know, if you look at representation, you know, with Simon Garrity in the Midlands Connect, we've got three board members represented on the Midlands Engine. We've got you working at the operations board as well. I mean, we're committed to actually making sure that we promote, and it is about that. It's about not just within the county. It's about making sure people hear about us outside, and that's why we spend so much time talking to many of the government departments and securing monies, because, you know, monies from, whether it's from BEIS, when it's from DEFRA, whether it's from DCMS, you know, the success we've had on the 5G agenda. You know, I laughed when I was standing up in Barcelona at the Mobile World Congress, and I was standing next to a bloke from Nokia who was talking about a global thing at Nokia, and I was up there representing Worcestershire, and I could see this guy looking at me and just could not work out how anybody from Worcestershire was actually talking. He didn't even know where Worcestershire was, I don't know.
Well, we get that a bit, don't we?
But it is. It's about how do we promote it, because there's some great things, and we're at the beginning of the journey. Let's not over-exaggerate it. But we are on the journey, and that's a lot to, I think we should feel proud about what we've achieved. We've just won a 5G rural contract or test bed with DCMS again, where we're testing about how you roll out connectivity into rural agendas, because they're underrepresented and they're many of the communities who've been left behind. So how do we actually help them actually achieve all the productivity gains that they want? We're doing something around the health agenda as well to make sure that people can live, operate and get the healthcare they deserve in a rural environment. And why shouldn't you? It's the right thing to do. So I think we're hitting many of the marks, but we've got a long, long way to go, which is why the 2040 vision and everything we're doing there, we have something we line ourselves up with, but we're going to have to make sure we get the investment and move forward on that one.
Yeah. And that 5G is really driven the reputation of Worcestershire, like you say.
I think it's been a great start, but we've got fantastic businesses, too many to name, but we've seen some of the bigger ones, Carl at Bosch has very much been promoting Worcester. Well, all of them promote it, from all those across. But it is we all need to shout about what a great place we have, what great businesses we have, and how we want to actually attract more businesses. Recognizing one of the key things that it's not just here, is a whole skills agenda. Because we also need to make sure as we bring in, we've always said that we're trying to actually lift the average salary level within the county. To do that, you need to bring the businesses and the investment in, but likewise, you have to lift the skill levels up to make sure that you have the workforce to be able to do that. And we've been, many of the things we've put in with the £12 million was about lifting that skills agenda to make sure that we actually have the right people with the right skills, particularly during COVID now, where we're going to find quite a lot of people who are going to, sadly, be challenged in their employment. And we talk about what's the change that we're going through now. I think the main thing we want to try and make forward in Worcestershire, because in the past we've not really been bothered by some of the recessions we've had, is to make sure we keep full employment.
Yeah,
the big thing.
We've been really successful.
Yeah.
We've discussed in the skills session with people like Stuart Laverick from
Yeah.
Howe College, how they're responding, but also how they're training in a different way.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
getting people more digitally enabled, I think, is really key.
It is. It's that linking some of the digital skills, which is not about the comms side. It is just about people who can work in a new way, if I'm honest about it. I wouldn't put myself in that one. I'm still, pen and paper and have to print things off. But it's about these new skills that enable businesses to connect with other businesses, to be able to actually do the things they need to do. And they're the future, and we need to invest in the youngsters, but also people who want to change careers. Because people now will maybe have 2 or 3 careers throughout their lifetime. And how do we enable people to be able to achieve that?
Yeah, no, I think that's something we've sort of thought about gradually over, and we've invested in certainly the further education and the university now in terms of that medical health and those kind of things.
I mean, the university again. What's the famous saying? It only works if it all works. And we've seen, the great work of the university with David Green and the team there has lifted the awareness of the city, but the county. The whole health agenda that they're promoting there is fantastic. We've got all the work going around with many of the other, not only the health sector, but all the other sectors we're promoting as well, but also the supporting sectors on top of that. All of it support each other, and it's that virtuous circle of what we have. But you're absolutely right, it's a critical agenda. I mean, what's been the highlight for you as you've gone through?
I think some of the highlights are definitely the way that the business and school sector, which is a kind of one of those nuggets that you can roll on the table and say, well, of course they should work together. But I think we've made a big impact there. I think also having that forward look in terms of connectivity, solving the physical pieces around congestion and transport and rail, but the digital side, having that foresight, I think, was something that the board and the LEP team really need to look back on. And then how we've adapted, I think Worcestershire as a business community, the community side really does pull together, and we're still seeing plenty of inward investment inquiries, which I think during this time most people would think we're not. So,
which almost is reflective of what we were saying earlier on, is I've seen a lot of the businesses sitting within the city, and I know we're not financial financial sector, but closing their major offices and having satellite offices out in other parts of the country. And we need to, attract the right businesses in our part of the world, because there is no reason why you cannot work in a wonderful place like Worcestershire. But you're absolutely right. But back to the schools one, you're right. It only works if it all works. It has to be all joined together.
And sort of when we look at our partners, getting the MPs and the district councils and all those kind of individuals working together, how do you think the sort of One Worcestershire team is performing?
I think it's performing well. When I hear about, I won't name, but other regions and how they don't work together, I think we work very well together, and we're committed to the One Worcestershire approach. I suppose what I really like as well is not only some of the key stakeholders who we all work together, whether it be north, south, east or west, or wherever it is. I'd love the business community to be more demanding and to get involved. And that's not a criticism, that's almost an invitation, because I think it is only through us all shouting and being demanding of what we want we'll end up in a fully engaged county and business community.
Yeah, certainly Worcestershire's somewhere that likes to keep it secret, hide its light under a bushel a little bit.
Absolutely.
I think we've got to be a bit more confident as we step forward and say, no, this is the good work we're doing, and this is how it plays into the regional and national dynamic.
Well, I can say when I first took over, I thought I knew quite a few of the businesses, but you never cease to be surprised about the innovation that you see across the county, and we probably don't shout as much about it as we should do. And we've got a lot of creative and innovative people, and we're trying to enable them to start their businesses up in the way they want. What you and Linda have done on BetaDen is fantastic, because you've seen there, so many of these accelerator innovation centres, they do 1 year and they're dead, and they're gone. And everything you've done there is you've lifted the profile up to a national level, and you've now onto your third, fourth cohort of people coming through, and it's just a fantastic achievement. And people start to talk about that. So I've heard about BetaDen in London when I've had meetings with MPs. They start saying what you're doing on that is wonderful. What we're doing Malvern Hill Science Park as well, with the land there, and about creating that European technology hub we talk about. And we've got BT investing there to actually build a centre there around the 5G and the manufacturing industry 4.0. People die for that type of
Fantastic, yeah.
So I think, let's not be complacent. There's a lot going on. There's many areas that we know we can improve upon. But I think it's great. It's been 6 years I've thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, certainly I've enjoyed it as well. I think we've worked together as a great team, and certainly that LEP board's helped us, partners have helped us, and the exec team's drawn in lots of people who probably go unrecognised, that have done a great job for us.
Yeah, no. I mean, the LEP board they're very demanding. It's very difficult at times, but they're very demanding, but we get great results coming out of it, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And I've always been proud of Worcestershire, and I wanted to achieve the recognition it should have, because we've got great businesses and great people.
Yeah. So what do you think is the one thing sort of looking forward that you'd want to see Worcestershire achieve?
I suppose, it's the ultimate one about that, truly about not just the economic growth, it's not that. I've always said that for me success is, I can't say what number bus it is, I think it's a 149 bus to, it's not Catsy, I can't remember what the number is, I was sitting behind it the other day. It is the people, Brenda sitting on that bus actually, because it's not just about business, not just about numbers, but people, the residents, people who live here actually go, this is a great place to live, and I can see all the benefits coming through. And that means they've got the connectivity, they've got the lifestyle, they've got the salaries, they've got all the benefits, they've got great cities, great towns, and people feel it's a great place. And I suppose ultimately as well, for me, success would be we talk about the children moving and moving away from the area. It'd be great that by 2040 that we've got people wanting to come here, because not only for the university but also as well to live and to work. And our children don't have to go away down to London. They will want to because they want to go to cities and have that lifestyle. But it's about having great careers in businesses that are forward thinking and have all of the enablers they want to be able to achieve everything they want. And that means we've got to push the connectivity so that we are a truly connected county, which means it's lots of fibre. You know, you've got the mobile signal when you want, you've got the roads that take you to the right places. We're green, we're sustainable, and it's a beautiful and fantastic place to live. That would be a wonderful achievement.
Yeah, I certainly think we can play more of a role in terms of that. It's been a great session, Mark. Great to talk to you. I'm looking forward to as we move on to the LEP team. We're really keen to get your feedback, whether that's through the polls that we're running during this conference, or whether it's kind of through emails or feedback verbally to either Mark or me. We're more than happy to take that feedback and listen to the things, how you're adapting, what you're going through in terms of the current economic, but with a real view to that vision that I think holds Worcestershire's torch at the moment as we go forward. Thank you. Welcome to this section that really focuses on the successes in Worcestershire. As part of the virtual conference, this is the last day, and we're really focused on some of those bits that we can celebrate as we normally do every year, but also with a bit of a forward look. I've got the Worcestershire LEP team with me, so we're really looking at it from a point of view of our own successes. Judy, what successes do you think in skills would you like to really highlight that we achieved in the last 12 months?
I think in the last 12 months we've been really lucky with the Careers and Enterprise Company work. We've taken it to a new level this year. We've had the support of our schools and further education colleges and our training providers. It's been fantastic. And we wouldn't have been able to do it without our employers as well. The fact that nationally we're at 5 benchmarks out of 8, whereas the average is 3, is an amazing achievement. And the fact that we were able to give 83% of our young people employer encounters, again, is a great achievement for the year.
And that's been a real team effort, not just between the sort of young people, the schools, but the businesses as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of businesses that work proactively with us and have continued to work proactively with us throughout this challenging period that we're all now in. And I suppose my ask would be that they continue to support us moving forward and think about how they can do that in the virtual world. So if we're not able to go into schools because of the challenges of social distancing, then we need to think about new ways, new tech opportunities, ways of working, and how they can get involved.
And so Luke Payton, our head teacher representative, was fantastic in terms of his feedback from the head teachers. But work experience going forward, is that going to be a bit of a challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. At the moment, obviously, we're not able to go into workplaces, and sending a young person into a workplace is a bit of a no-no at the moment. So we are looking at kind of how we can do that virtually. We're working with a number of our cornerstone employers, so our exemplar employers, to look at kind of bringing a virtual model to the county over the next few months. Okay,
over to you, Luke. In terms of the successes over the last 12 months that we've seen from a kind of infrastructure and the amount we've invested, what were your kind of highlights?
Well, I think the most obvious one, despite all the challenges that 2020 has brought, I think the investment that the county has put into our digital infrastructure has really paid dividends this year. I think we heard from Steve Ashton and Andy Mackenzie earlier in the week talking about the whole digital connectivity piece. And I think Steve was quoting, coverage of about 70% at the start of the programme. And we're now at 96+% coverage to premises. And I think that's just enabled people to be able to work remotely, for businesses to be able to continue operating during these difficult times. So I think that's probably the obvious standout for this year.
And we've continued to see that investment. I've noticed announcements of rural exchanges being enabled even last couple of weeks. So that's really important for those digital. What's the feedback from business been like over this period of been using that digital infrastructure?
Very positive. I think recognising our geography, we do have a rural makeup in the county. And that was kind of one of the key objectives at the start of the programme, to make sure that no one was really left behind. And yes, there have been areas that have been difficult to get to, but I think the team have tried to innovate and look at different solutions. So where we can't get fibre to the premises or to the cabinet, we've looked at other solutions, and the feedback has been really positive. I think that the next task now is, now that we've enabled the infrastructure across the county, it's encouraging that business take-up to kind of make the advantages of the infrastructure and the investment that's been made.
Okay, and certainly your role covers the kind of strategy and the governance, making sure that we're adhering to all that assurance and making good decisions. Are there some areas there that you think we need to focus on over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the strategic economic plan, which is kind of what we've used since 2014 when we published it to kind of look at where do we want Worcestershire to be out to 2025, has served us really well and has served the partners well in terms of attracting investment into the county. I think the fact that it's now kind of 6 years old, you know, we recognise that we need to update that. A lot has changed since we published that. You know, climate change has risen up the agenda. Obviously, the implications of Brexit and us leaving the EU, as well as COVID, obviously, means that it's time now to probably refresh. And there's a lot of work that's been going on over the last 12, 18 months or so. And I'd like to see that come to the fore in the next couple of months, really, and look to launch a new strategy that looks out to 2030 and beyond, really.
Great stuff. Judy, as we sort of look forward at some of the challenges we've got over the next period, obviously Stuart from Heart of Worcestershire College did start to say how they were operating in terms of blended learning and bringing learners in a different way. How do you see businesses also working through training their staff?
At the moment, I mean, there's a number of different ways that businesses can get involved. And I think one of the key takes for me at this point is that during COVID, businesses have had to look at the makeup of their workforce and consider how many people they've got who are perhaps at the older end of that bracket. I mean, we know that 1 in 3 people in Worcestershire in the workforce is over 50, and we need to start to address that by looking at kind of how we take on young people into our businesses. There's a number of schemes at the moment that we've talked about which can support our businesses to undertake working with young people and taking them into their workforces currently.
So in terms of then, you know, we recognise the kind of COVID and the economic kind of situation we're in, and that is starting to have an impact on kind of claimant count, but particularly youth unemployment. What are you doing there?
Absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, the figures were announced this week, and we're at 9.4% in Worcestershire of youth unemployment. And, you know, that's 5% more than we were at the beginning of the crisis. Young people have suffered during this time in terms of losing their work opportunities, and those numbers are unfortunately likely to climb at the end of furlough and possibly further still. The government's put a number of measures in to support that, which are really positive. We locally have also done that. So we have the Worcestershire Careers Helpline, so young people can ring that helpline. We've extended that until August 21 to support over this time. And they can ring and get advice on kind of the next steps and where to go and what programmes might suit them. We've worked with Worcestershire Apprenticeships and we're looking to secure more employers to offer apprenticeship opportunities. We've worked with the County Council to open up their levy so that they're able to support the training costs of those apprentices for our SMEs in the county. And we're also an intermediary now for the Kickstart programme, which should help a lot of young people secure employment over the next 12 months or so.
So we really need employers to get engaged with those programmes, because we need as many volunteers and as many people who are engaged in this programme. Give us a feel for what they would sign up to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, employers are crucial. We can't do it without employers, as is the majority of the skills work that we're looking at the moment. You know, there was a quote the other day by this Andreas Schleicher, who's the one of the assistant directors of the OECD, and he said, he was asked, you know, what's the greatest careers advice you could give someone? And he said, love what you do and do what you love. And my question is, how do you know what you love? And the only way you know that is by employers offering those opportunities, whether that's work experience, whether that's getting involved in a kickstart scheme and offering a 6-month work placement to a young person, whether that's doing an apprenticeship or a traineeship. We really need our employers to get involved.
Luke, the same on infrastructure really. We need that kind of employer feedback to kind of where do we go next, what are the schemes we bid for, because that really informed our Getting Building Fund bid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, we speak to businesses all the time, you know, using the Growth Hub as well to understand what are the key issues going on in Worcestershire at the moment. And certainly we kind of pulled on that intelligence when we pulled together our Getting Building Fund bid. You know, a couple of projects that kind of are a good example of that are the Kidderminster College, working with them on an automotive and construction skills centre so that they can kind of provide a skilled labour force to meet the demand in the north of the county, in the Wyre Forest area. Equally, we've got another skills capital project that we're working on with the university, looking at the health and medical sector and kind of big aspirations for Worcester there around you know, a 3 counties medical centre operating on a bigger geography than just Worcestershire, you know, and going beyond the borders. So understanding what the future requirements are of our employees is really important and helps to kind of define, you know, where we want to make interventions and kind of put public cash.
And Brian from Marshalls this week was giving us the feedback of, you know, those congestion hotspots are still there, they still affect the business. And Rachel Hill from the county was also responding that they're also planning and looking at, you know, what's next and where we go next. Where are we on some of those kind of next phase of schemes? Yep,
so quite right. Brian mentioned some of the challenges of, you know, operating a business such as his and, you know, the congestion hotspots we've got in the county. So the Getting Building Fund is going to address a couple of those in the sense that we've got a scheme planned around Hagley and improvements there to some congestion issues we have. And equally in Hoobrook in Kidderminster, we've invested some money there previously in terms of putting the link road and the bridge in. But it's again kind of alleviating some of those kind of congestion spots there. I think we recognise as well that we want to keep the pipeline fresh and keep the pipeline relevant and make sure that new schemes that we're pitching for are addressing current challenges. And so that engagement with businesses and partners and stakeholders moving forward is going to be key because, you know, I touched on the strategy refresh earlier. We're going to need a kind of an up-to-date list of projects that underpins that to follow as well, and understanding what the challenges are is crucial.
Okay, and Judy, you mentioned about the training providers and our other partners that we're working with. What we got from the polls was definitely new businesses are starting to come into things like apprenticeships. What should they be kind of preparing themselves for to make sure they get a good experience out of, you know, training young people, whether it's the Kickstarter or apprentices?
I think there's a double angle. You know, one, it's about the young person coming into the business and making sure you plan for them coming to the business as you would with any new inductee to your organisation. But it's also about ensuring that you as the employer have the right skills to take that person into the business. If you don't have trained managers and leaders, then actually, you know, that placement likely won't work out. If you haven't got those good communication skills and you understand how to get the best out of that, then again, you won't be able to. We do have schemes in the county to support businesses to up their leadership and management skills. So again, you know, contacting the Growth Hub would be a really good idea to get more information on those schemes.
Yeah, and so in terms of if a business is looking for that kind of support, do they get it from their training provider or can they come through another route?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of routes in the county. What I would suggest is that calling Worcestershire Business Centre is the best place to start. You know, they'll have a good conversation about what your needs are and then refer you into the appropriate mechanisms for you to explore them as a business.
And Luke, you know, when we're looking at digital connectivity and looking forward, how does that position the county as a good place to invest?
Well, I think, you know, we've seen a lot during the pandemic that a lot of people are looking to move out of urban areas and they're looking for that quality of life, recognising that you can work remotely. And so, you know, I go back to our kind of investment in digital infrastructure so far. It puts the county in a really good position to be able to attract, you know, more employees into the county. You know, whilst we've made great strides in terms of our super fast broadband coverage, We know that there's still a way to go. We're not going to be complacent. And those ultra-fast connections, those even higher speed kind of fibre into the premises connections, we're underperforming a little when you compare ourselves with kind of the region and also the national average. So one of the projects that we've going to be funding through the Getting Building Fund programme is around a super fast, an ultra fast, I should say, project in Worcester, where we're looking to have a data centre that will enable a commercial operator to come in and deploy ultra-fast connections to Worcester and the surrounding areas as a pilot and see those connections and you know, that will then hopefully inform and be rolled out wider across the county as we move forward.
And the energy strategy also sets that sort of ambition in terms of where we're going, not just on the digital side, but also for energy, low carbon and those elements. What work do we do there?
So government have been very clear around wanting to see a green recovery off the back of COVID. Last year we launched our energy strategy for the county with some really big ambitions around cutting carbon emissions, around increasing the amount of energy that's generated from renewable sources across the county as well, and looking to support that low carbon economy, because we do have some really you know, hidden gems around the county of companies that are doing some great stuff in here and that are innovating and are, you know, investing in kind of R&D to kind of bring forward the future technologies. And what I've been really interested in actually is that there is still a really kind of big appetite from the business community for these green technologies and these energy solutions. Yes, it helps with the bottom line in terms of looking to reduce costs, but also it's reducing carbon footprint. And I think there's a lot more conscientious and kind of you know, environmentally friendly businesses out there that are looking to do the right thing, and of course it helps with the savings as well.
Yeah, and when we had Dave through, he was very much talking about the then impacts of climate change. Flooding's the one that Worcestershire's seen historically, and sort of more frequently. How do we work with our sort of neighbouring LEP areas and counties to sort of help solve some of those problems?
Yeah, we've over the last few years, we've invested some money into some capital schemes across the county to look to alleviate flooding issues. And again, we know our kind of our geography in the county. We do suffer from flooding in certain areas, and Tenbury Wells is an area that unfortunately has been hit a number of times over the years with flooding. And so it was great to be able to secure some funding through the Getting Building Fund to work with the Environment Agency and Dave and his team. And we'll be working with them to put plans for flood resilience around Tenbury, because ultimately it's about providing that assurance to those businesses and those residents that, you know, there is a future there, and you know, it can't keep flooding. You know, they can't keep going through the heartache of having to, you know, renovate and refurbish their premises to then, you know, 6 months, 12 months later suffer the same issues again. So this is a really big scheme, and we'll be looking to engage with the local community over the coming months. So residents and businesses in that area, we encourage you to get involved and make sure that the solution is going to work for you guys.
So it's those national and international agendas that we're playing to as well, and not just trying to solve those kind of local issues, which really also plays into skills, because we recognise some of the challenges we've got locally, nationally, and how we solve those. In terms of then skills for the future, how are we starting to play into that?
So obviously we're starting to talk to our businesses to try to understand kind of where they feel their workforces are going and what skills they may need in the future. You know, it's difficult to predict what you don't know. So yeah, with the more business intelligence that we can get on board, then the better that we can be informed about A, what we're talking to our young people about and the careers of the future, and B, how our training providers can respond to that with the curriculums that they bring out.
Right, thank you both. I don't know if you want to sum up with kind of one statement. I mean, your quote was fantastic, Judy, that you managed to remember that. I think you impressed both me and Luke. But what would be your kind of thing that you've held on to in terms of this last 12 months?
I think it would be the resilience of our training providers over this period of time. This has been a really tricky period for them all, as it has for any business, but they've continued to be able to support support our young people throughout this time. So, you know, a great big thank you really to them and the efforts that they've made over this period of time. And I would just ask that moving forward, you know, it's easy to kind of get stuck in the here and now, but really to take some time to kind of look at what your business needs are for the future and therefore what you need to be doing about that now.
Great stuff. And Luke, you?
I suppose what I'd like to say is that I recognise it's the LEP logo over the door, as it were, but the partnership is the key word, and the fact that we've been able to make some, hopefully people will agree, some really positive announcements about what's coming forward and what's been delivered. It's really been down to the ability for us to work with partners to bring these ideas together, work together and pitch them into government to win that funding, and then again work with them to deliver them as well. So it's kind of the strength of partnership, really.
Brilliant. Thank you both. This is the end of this section where we've really reviewed that work on skills and infrastructure. They don't always sit together that well, but actually they do have, you know, they're key to our kind of economic future and the way that we enable our businesses to make those productivity improvements and recover in the current climate. Welcome to this second section where we're looking at the successes in Worcestershire. We're really keen to get your feedback on the virtual conference and the key messages that you think have come out of that, but equally things that you think we've missed. Naturally, with an organisation like the LEP, we cover so much that getting all that content into the 5 days is really difficult. So please ask us your questions, things you think we've missed, and as you can see, we're really keen to get that feedback and build it into a programme. I've got with me Phoebe from the LEP team and Linda. Phoebe, so looking back in terms of the COVID economic crisis, what sort of response and what are some of the successes to that response you think we've started to put in place, recognising we've probably still got a long way to go?
I think looking at the LEP and us operationally, I think the role of the Growth Hub and how that team have been able to support the businesses over the last 6 to 8 months has been really, really crucial. And they, you know, we as a team have obviously adapted to home working and things, but certainly they needed to be at the forefront of our business support infrastructure, and so they've been in a position to direct people to that support that's out there. And I think it's been really, really important to see how they've reacted very quickly to last-minute government announcements. You know, at the very beginning, things were coming in thick and fast, and certainly the team have been really, really resilient. Talking of resilience, though, I think another success is the resilience of our businesses, and that has really shone through. And you know, we've watched businesses adapt and change and grow and develop. And you know, we know that there's going to be some casualties through all of this, but there's been some real successes as well, and I think we need to celebrate those.
And certainly in the sessions where we were talking to Sam from Worcester Bid about retail, you know, really how businesses have adapted. I mean, some of those examples would be, you know, certainly a great highlight of business seems to be working through it.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, the government were offering support to these businesses. Some of it was financial, and these businesses really use that to look at, okay, well, what are we going to need to do in order to continue to trade? What practices do we need to put in place to make sure that we're safe and that we're a welcoming environment? So they did all that, but at the same time, they've looked at how they can diversify as well. So, you know, we've seen businesses who have never traded online going out now and utilising social media and things to be able to raise their profile across the county and nationally, but also add in sort of e-commerce facilities and things like that. And it, you know, it does mean that they are just going to be that little bit more resilient if we have to go into second lockdowns and things.
Yeah, and Kath, who's Cobain, the Director of Public Health, really gave us an overview of the work they're doing as a team to support the health agenda, but certainly business is really finding its feet. So, you know, how do you think we would cope with a second lockdown?
I think it would obviously, you know, I don't think anybody really would welcome one as such, but I think they would cope. We are a resilient bunch, and I think the support is out there, and I think more than ever people are more aware of the support that's out there at the moment. And I know this conference we've spoken a lot about Worcestershire Business Central and the Growth Hub and initiatives that are available through them and our partners at the county and the district councils. And you know, I would just encourage businesses to, if we do go into a second lockdown, to make sure that they are looking at the social media channels for Worcestershire Business Central. They pick up the phone and speak to us. They go onto the website, because that's where we're going to be able to direct the support through.
There's plenty of support and advice out there.
Yeah.
Linda, coming to you, I mean, Betaden's seen another 12 months of, which feels like a roller coaster at times, but also in terms of some of the successes of the cohorts, it's been fantastic. And we were here with Matt earlier in the week.
Yes, Betaden, still only 2 years old, but a great opportunity that Worcestershire has created. Worcestershire LEP really took a leap of faith by investing in our very own dedicated commercial technology accelerator. So the 3 pilot phase that we're in at the moment, as I said, with the 3rd and final cohort programme for the pilot phase, going very well, some really strong candidates. So 22 companies in 2 years have benefited from, as I said, a dedicated resource for them. And now we're looking ahead with our 5-year plan and opening recruitment for cohort 4 this November.
And some of those cohort members have really sort of kicked on since leaving the programme. I mean, Matt was giving us a bit of a feel for where he'd got to.
Yes, I mean, again, agility, I think, and reflecting on what Phoebe has just been saying about support for businesses. But with something like Betaden, and again, the resource that we can really kind of focus on the companies in our programme, the ability for technology to pivot and respond to the requirements. So Matt's company, Simovate, Matt Atkinson, that's all about mobile workforces, and my goodness, the whole world has changed in relation to all of the companies having workers and supply chains all on remote access. But other technologies such as Plinks with the hazard intelligence doing very well in the 5G project that they're going to be involved in going forward. As I said, and many more. This week, Veritherm are on a test site with an energy product for the housing industry. So you can see, again, how the technology is advancing through what Worcestershire has supported with giving this dedicated resource to these young companies.
And we were talking to Mark, or I was talking to Mark earlier, and he was kind of saying, well, it's about our reputation as a place. And I think, you know, what Betaden can't be the silver bullet totally to that. But what do you think in terms of Worcestershire's reputation as a place where you can start a technology business? Where do you think that is currently, and where do we need to get to?
In truth, I think Worcestershire is coming back, I think, is how I feel about our reputation. We have a strong reputation across some key industry areas, such as the security by design and cyber security network, also our manufacturing supply chains. But I think it's what COVID has created is really new opportunity. And what Worcestershire is really focusing on with, as Luke mentioned, our strategic economic plan reset and where we want to be in the next 10 to 20 years. And Worcester reputationally, not only from a geography perspective, but also from our network neighbours as well. I think it's a strength that we can really, really now start to, shall we say, gear up for. And Betaden is one part of that jigsaw.
Phoebe, coming back to you, when we talked to Nick from the export team, we were saying that we were still getting inward investment inquiries. You know, are those still flowing through in terms of people still looking to invest in their business?
Absolutely. I think the 5G testbed really put us on the map when it comes to inward investment inquiries. So just this year, we've hosted a number of delegations from across Europe. We've obviously just re-signed the Memorandum of Understanding as well, working with our friends over in Maryland in the States. So we're certainly seeing a real interest in what Worcestershire has to offer. And I I think I really look forward to that continuing to grow. When we're working with our colleagues at the Department for International Trade, they're looking at their strategy as we today, I think. So, they're working on that now. We will then look at what we want to do as Worcestershire that works to the strategy of the UK.
And John Dillon was talking to us about commercial property, really saying some of those changes and how those trends are going to impact Worcestershire. What do you think the sort of commercial property market looks like in the county, and is it fit for the kind of next phase?
I think we are certainly ready to adapt to the next phase. I think what we do need is those smaller units, as John mentioned. He's been sort of lobbying for the last sort of 2 or 3 years to get those smaller units, because we are seeing people being made redundant, people coming out of things like Beta-Den, and they're now looking for smaller units to set up and build their business from. So I think we need to be looking at that. We've got some good units available, but perhaps we need to be looking at more. We're seeing a bit of a trend in the change of office use, and certainly there's a real inclination to start looking at how we can put office use back into city and town centres, because they can then become those hubs for, they've got the transport links and things. So I think we're certainly making progress on that journey. It's looking positive.
And the town centres are really important, and Towns Fund in Worcester and in Redditch and Kidderminster has got future high streets. That investment to see the change in the high street is again something that we discussed with Sam. The pace of that seems to accelerate it.
Yeah, I think nobody could deny that the high street we've always wanted to say evolving rather than dying. I think there was about 2 years ago, there was a lot of negativity around it. We really feel that the high street is evolving, and all of the district and city council members have been working and looking at that and how can they adapt their high street. And as the LEP, we work with them to support that. And I think looking at how we can adapt the high street is something we've been doing for years, but it has accelerated over the last 6 months. We've probably accelerated that journey about 5 years. So, we know that we have to look at it now. The good thing is that things like the Future High Street Fund and the Towns Fund are enabling our partners and ourselves to look at what we can do to support those cities and town centres with their master planning. What is it that they want to do to make sure that they've got a future-proof high street for 2040 and beyond?
And Linda, coming back to you, obviously with Judy and Luke, we were talking very much about how we're getting that feedback from the business community. How are you working with Beta-Den and then with our wider businesses to kind of make sure that we're positioning those opportunities for commercialisation?
It's a really good question, because Beta-Den, again, if we're going to have a sustainable acceleration model, industry engagement is critical. So Beta-Den is now reaching out to industry to look at future sponsorship of cohort programs, where there is a big focus, particularly in the area of IoT, edge computing, security by design, areas in all supply chains where new technology and new solutions the market's hungry for. And the pace of the market means that if we're going to be supporting young businesses with new ideas, then the industry network will have the opportunity to engage with their local accelerator and, again, input into that and shape, should we say, future cohort programs. So we will be focusing down in particular niche areas as Beta-Den expands and grows. It won't just be a one cohort program, it could be multiple programs very dedicated in particular sector or industry focused areas. And I think that's the opportunity for industry. The other way businesses can be involved are things like our Tech Tuesday talks, where we take a very relevant topic. The next one is manufacturing and 5G. We've had drone technology and uses in the past. We've had cybersecurity, and next year we're going to be kind of growing that title series. So it really means something to the area that perhaps, should we say, individuals work in or companies are interested in getting into, because again, back to this diversifying aspect of how businesses are going to thrive and grow and how they're having to change their model. So yeah, we're trying to kind of make something that makes Beta-Den accessible, not just for the people in it, but for the businesses around it.
And the numbers in those tech talks in terms of audience, those have been growing and growing and growing.
They have. It's been amazing. Again, I suppose, the advantage of a virtual delivery rather than a physical place. And again, behaviour and culture is shifting and changing. We've had people on a Tech Tuesday from as far away as Australia tuning in because they were very interested in the topic. But again, on average, we're growing our audiences. Probably the most recent one, we had 150 registrations. And again, the one for November, that's getting towards the 200s. Still low numbers in the scheme of things, but growing reputation for Worcestershire about access to this kind of really useful, energised information.
And you've got, like you talked about, the future programme for that. You've got people sort of lined up who are keen to speak on those topics.
Well, they're approaching us. Beta Den's a bit of a curiosity because as people are finding out about us, you know, they are approaching us. And this also connects to investment, the investment community that, again, we need to create around these young businesses for Worcestershire. So, again, they can grow into the new spaces, the new communities, particularly around the science park space as well. So, yeah, that kind of reach out and kind of inquiries to Beta Den is also a growing area.
Because that investment community is probably not even touched Worcestershire as a place, and sometimes we don't necessarily get that governmental support that we don't necessarily get our fair share. So those are some of the things that Beta Den enables us to kind of put Worcestershire in the spotlight.
Well, interestingly, investment markets are, again, hungry for opportunities, and where more traditional metrics were used where companies had to have 4 to 5 years trading, we're now seeing and hearing from the market that these investment industries are looking at companies of only 18 months to 2 years old, right in the sweet spot for us with what we're kind of turning out when people complete on Beta Den. And again, we want more of that community to grow around us, and hopefully we can bring more investment into the businesses in Worcestershire.
And Phoebe, that pace of change is something that I think we're going to have to deal with as we go forward into the next phase. But I think Mark mentioned it in the headline session to this, where he was talking about, but we need to kind of make sure we've got the views of Brenda on the bus. You know, our sort of, it's a real big challenge for something like LEP that normally talks to the business community really well, but that wider community, what things should they see that's a bit different?
I think the impact that we'll have, we talked about it earlier, but the high streets and town centres, they are the hub of the community, and I think an impact there. I think you're always going to recognise that in the infrastructure projects and things that we work on are always going to impact on everybody's day-to-day life. But very importantly, as Luke mentioned in the previous session, if you look at the infrastructure we're putting in around the digital infrastructure for the county, certainly that's going to have a huge impact. And I think sometimes we have a bit of a job of ensuring that actually the Brenda on the bus, as we say, recognises the role that the LEP has to play in all of this. So certainly that's something for us to look at as an exec team as to how we communicate that.
And Worcestershire's profile outside of the county is something that we're sort of focused on, but it's always a bit of a challenge. But we've done recently an initiative with the Saturday Times. Yeah, so through the One Worcestershire campaign, we have recently launched a Make It Worcestershire, which was around us sort of highlighting the kind of things that are available that we make within the county. And we started it actually on a food and drink theme, but we're expanding that now, and the next theme is going to be on manufacturing. And we had a really good 4-page spread, which went in the Saturday Times food magazine with a competition linked to it. And it really did draw attention to the county and the fantastic businesses that we have supporting that sector. So in concluding the sessions that I did with Judy and Luke I asked them for sort of their one thing that they would take away. What would be yours?
From this last 12 months?
Yes.
I think it's the resilience of the wider team and the Business Central, and that of our businesses. I think last year Business Central spoke to circa 1,600 businesses. We've already engaged with more than that, and we're only in October, so we're halfway through. I think that intelligence that we're getting now from those businesses to help us shape the future for the LEP and the county is key and is so vitally important. And I think watching us change and adapt how we work and how our businesses work has been key.
And Linda, coming to you, same question.
I think keeping a very early stage project alive, kicking and thriving, that's been my takeaway from this year. We couldn't run our showcase physically, so we put our showcase for Cohort 2 online. Very successful, fantastic viewing figures, and again, testament to the progress these companies had made in the 9 months they've been in the programme. So yeah, for me, more of that, stronger candidate entries, more to attract more of the talent into Worcestershire and from Worcestershire to see the advantage of using a locally based accelerator and in the future, better and more industry connections.
Thank you both. I mean, it's been a really interesting week. We've covered a huge amount of ground. I'd like to thank all the speakers and I'd like to thank all the partners that work with us to make Worcestershire a success. You know, we've really been keen to reach out and get your feedback in terms of the things that we are doing and perhaps the things we aren't. And therefore, we're keen to kind of hear from you, not just during this weekly long virtual conference that's been a new experience. Normally, we've done conferences where we've had nearly 500 people in the room. I'd like to thank the DRP team that they've done a great job and my team that have really worked hard at putting this together. We look forward to hearing more from you and you'll certainly hear more from us as we go forward with the new strategy. Thank you.